Have you ever had a conversation in a really mundane place that ended up changing your life? I'm talking about those fluorescent lit, slightly damp, smelling of fabric softener kind of places. For me, that place was a 24-hour laundromat on a Tuesday night. I was there, wrestling with a fitted sheet that refused to fold, feeling pretty lost. I'd just moved to the city. My dream job was turning into a nightmare, and my grand plan for life felt like it was crumbling. Sitting across from me was a woman, probably in her late 60s, meticulously folding a tiny mountain of baby clothes. We exchanged a tired smile, the universal sign of laundromat solidarity. She started the conversation. A simple long night. I nodded, and before I knew it, I was pouring my heart out. I told her about the pressure, the loneliness, the feeling that I was failing at everything. She listened, her hands never stopping their gentle, rhythmic folding. When I was done, a pile of perfectly folded onesies sat beside her. She looked at me, her eyes kind and clear, and said, "You know, fear is just a story we tell ourselves. A story about a future that hasn't happened yet." She told me about her own life, how she'd been a concert pianist, but stage fright had crippled her. For years, she avoided the piano, letting her fear write her story. She said, "I was so scared of hitting a wrong note that I stopped playing any notes at all." That line hit me like a ton of bricks. How many notes was I avoiding in my own life because I was scared of messing up? She went on to tell me how she finally faced her fear. It wasn't on a grand stage, but in a small community center, playing for a handful of seniors. It was clumsy at first, she said, but it was music. She was making music. Again, as I spoke, she pulled out a worn, leather-bound journal from her bag. She told me it was her fear journal. Every time she felt scared, she'd write it down, not to dwell on it, but to acknowledge it, to give it a name. Then, on the opposite page, she'd write down one small, tiny, manageable step she could take to face that fear. Scared of playing in front of people? She'd write, and on the other side, play one song for my husband. Scared of a difficult piece? The action was, practice the first 2 bars for 5 minutes. It wasn't about conquering the whole mountain in one go. It was about taking a single step up the path. She explained that fear thrives in the dark, in the unspoken corners of our minds. When we drag it into the light, write it down, and look it in the eye, it loses so much of its power. It becomes just a word on a page, not a monster under the bed. As our dryers buzzed in unison, signaling the end of our laundry and our conversation, she looked at me and said, "I want you to make me a promise. Not to me, really, but to yourself." She tore a blank page from her journal and handed it to me, along with her pen. "Promise me," she said, "that you'll start your own journal, that you'll stop letting fear write your story, and you'll start writing your own, one small step at a time." I took the paper, and in that brightly lit, humming laundromat, surrounded by the scent of clean clothes, I made a promise. I wrote down my biggest fear at that moment. I am afraid I made a huge mistake moving here, and I am not good enough for my job. Then I turned the paper over. My first step. Tomorrow, I will ask one person at work for help on the project I'm stuck on. It felt so small, almost laughably simple, but it also felt possible. I never saw that woman again. I don't even know her name, but that promise I made in the laundromat, it became my lifeline. I got a journal the very next day, and I started writing. The first few weeks were hard. Some days, the fear page was full, and the action page was just breathe, and that was okay. The point wasn't to be fearless. It was to be brave for just a moment, for just one small action. Asking for help at work didn't magically solve all my problems, but it did lead to a conversation, which led to a collaboration, which slowly built a connection. I started inviting coworkers to lunch. I started exploring my new city on weekends, even if it was just walking to a coffee shop 2 blocks away. Each action was a single, defiant note played against the silence of fear. Over time, my journals started to change. The fear pages got a little shorter. The action pages got a little bolder. Sign up for that public speaking workshop. Submit a creative idea in the team meeting. Book a solo trip. That laundromat conversation taught me that bravery isn't a personality trait you're born with. It's a muscle you build. It's a habit you cultivate, one small, intentional act at a time. It's about choosing to play your music, Even if you're terrified, you might hit a wrong note. So, what about you? What story is fear telling you right now? Maybe you're feeling stuck, or lonely, or like you're failing. Maybe you're afraid of starting something new, or ending something old. Here's my challenge to you, the same one that kind stranger gave to me. Take out a piece of paper. Right now, on one side, write down one thing you're afraid of. Be honest. Give it a name. Now, flip it over, and write down one tiny, ridiculously small step you can take tomorrow to face it. Not to conquer it, just to face Italiano. It could be sending that email you've been dreading. It could be saying hello to a neighbor. Your story is not finished. Fear doesn't get to write the ending. You do.